Have you been trying to find or flip profitable cars but just can't seem to find one that yields a good profit when it comes time to sell the car? Don't worry, in this video I'm going to show you the A to Z process of inspecting a used car so that you can be confident it has genuine profit potential before you buy it. For more on every step of the car flipping process, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next weekly video. My name is Benjamin McShannock and welcome back to Ben Flips Car. And using the methods I'm about to show you, I was able to find this fantastic condition Holden Cruise with a roadworthy certificate for just $3,200, which already has the profit potential to sell for a lot more. If you haven't seen the first video on inspecting a used car, where I go over the car inspection kit, red flags to watch for, general tips, questions to ask the seller, and general due diligence, all to do before starting your actual inspection, I'll pop that up in the corner now so you can go and check out that first part. This video will make a lot more sense following that one. Now that we've done our due diligence, it's time to finally actually start our inspection of the vehicle. We're of course going to start with the most important parts, that being the engine bay, engine fluid and engine checks. So to get access to the engine bay, we're going to want to start by popping the bonnet. The lever is usually down here in the driver's footwell. You can see it just here. Then with a little bit of feeling around, you should be able to slide over the lever that's holding the bonnet shut and open up the bonnet. Some cars will have hydraulic struts that hold the bonnet up for you, but in this case, we have this rod that we have to prop up the bonnet with. Now, engine bays are typically pretty dirty, so I'd highly recommend you put on some disposable gloves from your car inspection kit that we touched on in the last video. First, let's look up and have a look at the hood itself. Is there any sign of an impact, any rust or damage? As said, some cars have hydraulic struts, and if your car does have them, you want to make sure that the bonnet is being held up by those and that the bonnet's not falling shut. And when closing the bonnet, does it close flush and latch up properly? Next, let's have a look at everything surrounding the engine bay. You want to have a look at the fenders and the frame around the engine bay and ensure that everything's straight and square. Same with the engine itself. Does it look like it's sitting square inside the engine bay? Some engines do naturally sit at a bit of an angle. Just be sure to do your research on the car you're looking at to make sure that's correct. If any of the fenders, frame, the engine bay or the bonnet are out of shape or damaged at all, could suggest that the car's been in a major frontal impact at some point. Next, you want to have a look for if there's any leaks coming from inside the engine bay. And using your small powerful torch from your car inspection kit is very handy for this. Have a close look around any of the fluid reservoirs and lines, as this is where leaks are most likely going to appear from. Bear in mind that the power steering pump sometimes has a vent on it, and the vapor from that vent can make the surrounding area look wet and moist, which can confuse you into thinking that it could be a fluid leak, but in most cases that's normal. Make sure you also check on the ground underneath the engine bay, especially with your torch, as this is where leaks are most likely to appear. With gravity, fluid is going to flow downward. Also take note of the cleanliness of the engine bay in general. Most engine bays are fairly dirty and that's normal. Some sellers will clean them up a bit like I have to this one. That's why it's looking fairly clean, because I want to present this to potential buyers. But if it's excessively clean and there's absolutely no dirt anywhere, or if it's just really clean in one particular spot, it can suggest that the seller has tried to clean some kind of leak and that they're trying to hide that from you. Just be aware of that. Next, you want to look around for if there's any obvious damage to any general components or if there's any parts missing. For example, maybe the fuse box cover could be missing on some cars, something like that. And take note of any new parts. For example, this car had a fairly new battery when I first did the inspection on it. And speaking of the battery, you want to come and check the battery terminals where the negative and also the positive wires for the battery connect. Any excessive corrosion or obvious damage to the wiring can cause the car not to get full power from the battery and not work as it should or not start altogether. Corrosion on battery terminals can be fairly easily cleaned up, but it's good for negotiation leverage as it can cause real issues. You can see these terminals are nice and clean. Next, let's have a look at the drive belt. You can see it on this engine here. It's on the side. It'll be on the front of some engines or the other side. It should be a nice dark black color. If it's cracked, torn or discolored, it could snap and it will need to be replaced. And this is also a roadworthy issue, of course. And make sure you give it a press with your finger. It should be nice and firm and shouldn't have much slack in it at all. Then looking around at any hoses, lines, wires or clips, are they all in good condition? For the most part, they should be somewhat soft to squeeze. They shouldn't be really hard or cracking. Look out for any cracks, bulges, anything that's dried out, ripped or tearing. And if you find something that doesn't look as it should, this is a great time to get your telescopic mirror, stick it in there and have a look to see if you can see anything that may need to be repaired or replaced. We also want to make sure everything's seated and firmly in place in the engine bay. So you can grab any components like the air intake box here, give it a firm little shake. Coolant reservoir, fuse box, any other bits of plastic or wiring, everything should be fairly sturdy and firmly in place and not feel like it's going to fall out whilst you're driving. If something has a lot of play in it, say for example if this coolant reservoir moved a lot, it might need something like a new clip, or if it's totally broken, it might need a whole new reservoir altogether. Or it could be totally possible during a previous repair job that something specific like a clip or a bolt might not have been reinstalled, and finding those specific parts to seat the part correctly again will be a total pain. Finally, let's follow the air intake lines, and you want to have a look inside of the air intakes themselves and check that they're nice and clear. If you can easily open up the air intake box, you want to do that. This one's closed with screws, but some of them are just clips and you can open it straight up. Look for nests or any other debris, especially if the car's been sitting for a while. Critters sometimes like to make these tubes and air intakes their new home. And there we go, with our general engine bay inspection out of the way. We now want to get an idea of what our engine bay fluids, what kind of a condition they might be in. And for this step, you really want to have some gloves to keep your hands clean, paper towels, your torch and your straws, all from the car inspection kit. You also want to ensure that the car's on a level flat surface when you're checking the fluid in the engine bay to get a correct reading of all the levels. Let's start with the check that everyone knows, and that is of course checking your oil dipstick, checking the oil level. So find your oil dipstick, pull it all the way out, then you're going to want to wipe the end of it with a paper towel, totally wipe it clean like that, and you want to stick it all the way back in, down to the bottom, pull it out for an accurate reading of the car's oil level. You can see in this case it's right between that minimum and maximum line. Anywhere between them is fine, and that means our engine's oil level is good. If it's underfilled, that means that the engine could be leaking or burning oil, and if it's overfilled, especially if it's significantly overfilled, then that's something you want to be wary of, as the seller might have overfilled the engine oil on purpose to hide knocking or ticking when the engine is running. If it's only slightly overfilled, then it shouldn't be a problem. Also have a look at the general condition of the oil. You can see this oil's a nice gold color, which is what you want. You don't want any specks or spots in it either, and this oil looks clear. If it's really dark, then the car most likely needs an oil change and a service. Also, if the oil smells burnt, or if there's a lot of specks and spots in it, or it's frothy, these are all really bad signs, and it means that the engine is likely damaged and needs major work. Bear in mind your oil level only reads accurate when the car hasn't been started, or if it has been started, let it sit for at least 5 minutes so all the oil can run back down into the oil pan at the bottom of the engine, and that way you'll get an accurate reading. We can also open up our oil filler cap here, and then with that opened up, you want to shine your torch inside of the engine to get a look at the components and get an idea of how the engine's looking. You can see this one's definitely got a little bit of carbon buildup, but that's pretty normal on a car with 165,000 Ks. As long as it doesn't look totally gunky or filthy, or like there's a frothy milkshake in there, then that should be totally fine. Also take note of what the oil filler cap looks like. If there's any foam or any milkshakes on this, that could also be another sign that you might have something like a blown head gasket and that the engine will need major work. Next, if possible, we want to check the transmission fluid. Nowadays, many cars don't have a transmission dipstick, but if your car does, you just want to check it the exact same way that you checked that oil dipstick. Ideally, transmission fluid should be a light pinkish color with no specks or spots in it, and you don't want it smelling burnt, as the transmission could be on the way out. Next, let's have a look at the engine's coolant reservoir. Now, before touching this, you want to make sure that the engine is cold, and I really can't stress this enough, because when the engine is hot, the coolant heats up and becomes pressurized within the coolant system, which means that if you open up this coolant reservoir cap when it's pressurized like that, hot coolant could spray out everywhere and scald you. Plus, the coolant level reading is actually only accurate when the engine is cold, because as it heats up and pressurizes, the coolant level tends to rise up higher than what its real reading is. So with all that being said, let's check out the coolant level. You want it to be between the minimum and maximum lines again, but you can see in this case, this car has a little arrow that suggests where the coolant's meant to be. So I think if it's between those two little plastic lines, then it's at the right level, and it's just at the bottom of that line. When I first inspected this car, the coolant level was actually low, significantly below the minimum line. And because of this, the car's heating wasn't working properly. So I decided to follow the coolant lines around the engine to see if I could find a leak. And what happened was there was a significant leak coming from the oil cooler, which is back behind the exhaust manifold here. And in seeing that leak, it allowed me to significantly negotiate down the price with the seller. You also want to remove and open up this coolant reservoir cap Again, only if the engine's cold. And again, shine your torch in there to get an idea of the coolant's condition. You don't want any milkshakes in here either. It should be a clear and vibrant color. In this case, you can see it's red, but something like green as well is typical of the color that you can expect to see in the car's coolant reservoir. And for further inspection, we can stick our straw into the coolant reservoir, stick our finger over the top, and draw a little bit of coolant out onto the paper towel. And you just want to check that coolant's condition. Just make sure there's no specks or spots in it and that it's that nice, bright, vibrant color. And then with coolant, if your car also has a radiator cap, it'll usually run across the front of the engine bay somewhere here. You'd also want to open up that cap, check underneath there, and have a look at the condition of the coolant in there also. A bit like a transmission dipstick, many cars these days do not have a radiator cap. Next, let's have a look at the power steering fluid reservoir. Some will be clear and you'll be able to see the power steering fluid level from there. In this case, we've got to open it up. Then you can see on our little dipstick here, it has a minimum and a maximum line. It's just above that minimum line, below the max, so we're all good there. And again, you want to have a bit of a look at the condition of that fluid. Again, it should look nice and clear, without any specks or spots in it, and not smell burnt, similar to the other fluid. And just bear in mind that if the car that you're looking at has electric steering, then it obviously won't have a power steering fluid reservoir. Then the final fluid to check is the brake fluid master cylinder level. Again, you want it to be between those min and max lines. I think if we open this up, this is actually above the max line. So whoever's done the most recent brake job on this has filled that reservoir right up. You'd rather it overfilled than underfilled, but again, it should be between the min and the max line. And if it's up at the max or above the max line like this, then it probably means that you've got plenty of life left on your brakes. But of course, we're gonna verify that by inspecting them later. When opening up the cap, just be careful, as brake fluid's very corrosive. You don't want it dripping out and getting onto metal parts of the engine bay, as it can rust them. And if it gets on your skin, just wash your hands off quickly and you'll be fine. Should be a nice vibrant color. In this case, it's like an orangey color. Sometimes it'll be like a green or a blue or an aqua color as well. Same as with the coolant, you can draw some of that out onto a paper towel if you'd like to further inspect the condition of the fluid. And you can do the exact same thing with the power steering fluid as well. Do you disagree with any of the points that I've touched on so far? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm only a YouTube mechanic that likes to solve problems, so I'm always keen to learn more from others on how I can do these things better. And once again, if you missed the first video on inspecting a used car where I cover due diligence, I'll pop it up in the corner for you to check out after you finish watching this video. I'll also put it at the end screen of the video because this video is going to make a lot more sense following that one. Beautiful. And with that, we're done with our engine fluids and engine bay inspection. I know that there's a lot to go through here, but these checks are the most crucial ones when it comes to ensuring you're getting your hands on a good vehicle with a good engine that has that profit potential that we're looking for. Now, there's just one more essential set of checks we have to do for the engine to make sure that this car has a good engine, and that is to see how the engine runs. You'll likely need help from the seller for these checks, as you'll be wanting to watch the engine and the exhaust pipe as they operate the engine. First, stand behind the car and watch the exhaust. Have the seller start the car and see if any smoke comes out from the exhaust at all. Also take note of if the car has any issues starting with a cold engine. When watching the exhaust, we want to watch for thick grey or blue smoke, which would suggest oil is leaking into the combustion chamber, thick white smoke, which could suggest coolant is leaking into the combustion chamber, or thick black smoke, suggesting excessive fuel consumption is occurring in the combustion chamber. It's important to watch for smoke when cold starting the car, as oil or coolant has had time to build up in the combustion chamber if it's leaking into the combustion chamber, meaning after a few minutes of running, it could burn off and clear out. Then you wouldn't even know that the issue is occurring. This is why it's important to get a cold start on the vehicle. Bear in mind, it's normal for some thin, light, white smoke to come out of the exhaust upon cold start, especially when it's cold weather outside. This is just normal water vapor, which is a natural byproduct of engine combustion, and you can see it's occurring in this video here. After checking for smoke on the initial startup, make your way around to the front of the car and have a listen to the engine. Any unusual or bad noises will be most obvious when the engine is starting cold. Is there any ticking or grinding? Is the drive belt squeaking? Anything like that? Are there any unusual smells whilst the car is running, especially around the running engine or around the exhaust? A kind of fumey smell is pretty normal for most cars, but look out for a very strong petrol smell. You don't want that. About 5 minutes after starting the car, so it's had some time to warm up, ask the seller to rev and hold the engine at around 2000 RPM. Watch the exhaust while they hold the revs and check for any of the same problematic smoke that I mentioned upon starting the car up. Next, we want to ensure the engine mounts are in good condition, so just have a look for any movement in the engine as the engine's idling. You can see this engine is basically perfectly still. Again, after the car's had about 5 minutes to warm up, ask the seller to give the engine a few good revs. Does the engine rock around in the engine bay when being revved? Then ask the seller to switch the engine off and then back on. Is there any excessive shuddering when the engine's switching off or on? You can also open up the oil filler cap and put your hand over the hole to check for if there's any excessive pulsation or sucking whilst the engine is running. A little bit of pulsation is normal, but any excess of either is bad. Also, if it smokes out of the oil filler cap hole, that also means the engine's bad. Now that the engine's running, have a quick look around the engine bay again for any possible leaks. In particular now, underneath the engine bay, see if anything's dripping or leaking. And once the engine has run for 5 minutes or so and warmed up, how does it sound now that it's warm? The idle should have slowed a bit and the revs dropped a little bit, but it should still sound smooth and consistent. Now ask the driver to step out and hop into the driver's seat yourself. With your foot on the brake, we want to check how the car's transmission is. So we've got it in park. First, let's shift it into reverse, then into neutral, then into drive. And there shouldn't be any significant shudders or clunks while doing it. Little shudders okay, but if it's anything big and it doesn't sound good, then obviously that's a worry. Shift it back up into neutral again, into reverse, and then back into park. And then with that, you can release your foot off the brake. You also want to check if the handbrake's working, so you can put the car into neutral. Make sure the handbrake's of course applied, and if you can push the car whilst it's in neutral with the handbrake applied, then the handbrake's not working. And then of course, have a look at the dashboard to see if there's any dash lights. You can see we've got doors open, which of course is correct. We've also got handbrake, which of course the handbrake's on. And then we've also got that we haven't got our seatbelt on, which indeed is the case. So we don't have to worry about any of those. And we've got no other dashboard or check engine lights that we need to worry about. And finally, using the OBDII Scanner from the car inspection kit that we mentioned in the last video, we want to check if the car has any error codes that aren't showing up on the dashboard when the engine's running. So all we have to do is find the car's OBDII port, which is usually on the driver's side down in the footwell. And you can see it just there. So we're going to plug that in, make sure it's nicely and firmly pushed on there, and then the OBDII scanner should fire up. From that point, we go diagnose, and just give that a few seconds to diagnose. Then when it comes up with this screen, press OK, and then we go read codes. You can see this vehicle has no fault codes, which is great. If it did come up with a fault code, you can just use ChatGPT or Google to do some research on it, figure out if it's a major issue, and if you can use it as negotiation leverage. Awesome. So with that, we've covered our engine bay, engine fluids, and have now checked how the engine runs. Now that the most important part of inspecting the vehicle is out of the way, we can now move on to inspecting the exterior of the car, all of which I'm going to cover in just as much depth as I did with the engine. Now that's all going to be in the next video, so be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss it when it's released. And I'll also have it pop up in the corner of this video here once it is released. Once again, if you missed the first part on inspecting a used car, where I go over the due diligence to do before starting your actual inspection, it should be up on screen now. If you have any questions, drop it in a comment below or to message me directly. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, also at Ben Flips Cars. Like to help me out with the YouTube algorithm and subscribe so you don't miss the next weekly video. My name is Benjamin McShannock and thank you very much for watching Ben Flips Cars.